Hello, everyone. This is Teddy Jones, and for my research project, I chose to study sea turtles. Just a brief history before we even begin on that. Anybody who knows me knows that sea turtles are my favorite animal, second only to cats. So this is a very big topic for me. I would protect every single one of them if I could. Uh, so, specifically, this study we are choosing to talk about today is the effects of projected changes in tropic cyclone frequency on sea turtles. That was a mouthful. I do understand that it can get kind of crazy, when you think about like global warming and the effects on humanity itself. It's even crazier to start to think about the effects of it on other animals in the world that we, inhabit with. So, we're going to go over a study that was done to determine whether or not these effects would be more detrimental or occur more often or not. All right, now a brief summary of the study. As I mentioned before, it investigates the impact of projected changes in the tropical and cyclone frequency on sea turtle populations along the eastern coast of Australia. The researchers used different climate change methods as well as data on turtles, such as their historical life spans. Um, they also collected data from, the timing of nesting, uh, the historical cyclone activity in that area provided to them by the Australian Bureau of Meteorology. That survey roughly provides data from 1961 to about 2000. Um, and they were able to use this data to simulate climate simulations in about 11 different regions using the same methodology, which is the A2 greenhouse gas emission scenario. Basically, what are greenhouse gases going to look at the year 2055 if they can continue going on the way they are, or what are they going to look like in 2090 if we've blown past the point of no return? Now, there are some limitations to this study. Specifically, there is variability, and that is being due to the fact that of these 11 different regions that they've used, a lot of them different, ecologically. Some of them are in northern hemispheres, some of them are in southern hemispheres, some are, near the equator, some are closer to the polar caps where they took these 11 simulations. They realized that that was part of the variability that they were giving or that they were receiving. So it is factored into it, but it is a limitation of the study that is self-addressed in the study. So it is aware of that limitation. Secondly, the emissions scenario only factors in one scenario. Like I said, it's the A2 greenhouse emissions, where they focus on 2050, 2090. Um, but it only focuses on a heterogeneous world. Basically, you know, how is this going to impact sea turtles if humans are the only ones still alive? If we're continuing to grow our population, are we, eventually going to, impact this? That is kind of a limitation because you're only focusing on one aspect of it. What it happens in a world where meteor hits and it's not human-made global climate change? How is that going to impact sea turtles and the cyclone activity in those areas? Um, Another limitation I thought was interesting is even though that they used 11 different regions in the simulations, they had an issue with scaling it further past that, due to the fact that it increases more variation and more variables that will they could risk ruining the study. I'll get into that further a bit later. Let me move my camera out of the way here so you can see the rest of the limitations, and that is nesting data. Any rookery, and yes, I learned this out today, a farm or a place where turtles hatch their eggs is called a rookery. Good to know. I always thought rookeries were associated with dragons, but it's kind of cool that, being the fact that they're also reptiles and share, genes with dragons, that they would also get that. Um, Digression aside, any rookery that had produced more than, I think it was less than 10 sea turtles that were nesting each year, they were not included in this study. And the reason being is they wanted to simplify the representation of where they were showing on the maps the nesting location. I will be providing this actual study when I am attaching this assignment, so you can actually see that map. I was not able to pull it from the journal itself to add it to this. Alright, on to the next slide. Too far. Okay. Now, we're on the analysis methodology, and I'm sorry for moving the camera. Camera is getting in the way for this presentation, but the methods used, they use several different methods. Specifically for climate, they use the CSIRO, which is the Commonwealth Scientific Industrial Research Organization, again, long-winded, and the conformal cubic atmospheric model, again, scientists love to put as many names as possible. But those were the two used when generating climate simulations. For the cyclones themselves, they use what is called TCLVS, or tropical cyclone-like vortices. It sounds complicated, but basically, you ever have a tornado watch and you see a funnel in the sky? That could be considered a tropical-like cyclone-like vortices, as an example. Water spouts, we get them often here in Florida, sometimes off of the beach when we're not having so much good weather. Those would be considered TCLVs. But specifically, since we want to get down to the nitty-gritty, I do want to mention this out of the way. It is the fourth bullet point, but I'm going to bring it up now. The conditions for this survey were met. However, they did not specify any T or P values that they may have used in the course of this study. I did want to mention that. However, they did provide their methodology in which they used to track the frequency of cyclone hits. And they did this on an average. They did this monthly, and then they used the combination of the two to make any projected changes that they think is going to happen. So for average frequency, you can see here it is the total number of cyclones hit in a period divided by the number of years in that period. So let's say, to give an example, they used 1961 to 2000. Well, that is roughly 39 years. I would say roughly about 40 years. It is exactly 39 years. But so they would do how many times a cyclone would be hit in that time period. So the 40 years, the average frequency of it would be X. Then they would average that out several times, and then they would use that to track the frequency of the monthly rate, in which it is the total number of cyclones hit in that month across all years. So let's say they pull out December, and then they look at December for all 40 of those years. And then they would say, okay, this December, out of the 40 years, 26 of those years, a cyclone hit during those months, because you only want to count where cyclones did hit. So you would divide total numbers of cyclones hit in that month across all of the years, and then you would take the total number of years, and then you would divide that. And that should give you an answer for your monthly. From there, you would do the percent change. You would take future cyclone frequency based off of any meteorologic data you have, or historical. History always tells a story. So we can use that data as well. So if you use future you would subtract it from the historical, then you would divide it by the historical frequency and take that value and add it to 100. And that's what your percentage change would be for, the average change in whether or not they believed or believed not that, the cyclone impact would impact them more or less. So the conclusions that they drew from this, they said that there is actually a tendency in a reduction of cyclonic activity that they had noticed during this time. So good news for sea turtles. They don't foreshadow any, cyclones coming and messing up their nesting grounds anytime soon. That they also believed in the Queensland coast. They also see a defect in those, or decrease in those effects, excuse me. So the nests that are being impacted on the Queensland's coast are being less and less affected by stuff, which is, again, fantastic for sea turtle lovers and sea turtle populations. Their final conclusion that they came up with was that the conclusions are supported, and this is supported by the projected decrease in cyclone frequency that they used in the regional climate models. So, yeah. And here are my references. Yeah, I personally thought this was a great study to do. It was very fun. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great day.